I think it was back in 2004. I can't remember exactly who we were talking to. I think it was Charles Ogletree, law professor from Harvard, who I think is still there. And I was saying, how is it that you guys, you professors, you constitutional law, or I should say Supreme Court watchers, how is it that you still maintain this pretense that the Supreme Court is legitimately taking up legal arguments? I mean, after Bush v. Gore, it seemed so apparent to me. And this is someone, I'm saying this as someone who was raised to think that, lawyers were the sort of the integrity pecking order, were above just about everybody. I was raised by literally a pack of lawyers. So it was like, if you're a lawyer, your responsibility to the law is above everything. And yes, well, that was the point. Yeah, Bush v. Gore was not only a ridiculous ruling, but they also sort of said and incidentally, this is a one-off. If we're ever in a position to change an election for someone we don't want to win, this would not be binding. And it was a joke. Nobody, no legal expert prior to Bush v. Gore, that case, as it was winding through the state court, thought that the Supreme Court would take the case. Never mind rule in favor of George Bush, because it would be in some way, if the votes were counted, that it would some way prejudice what they were hoping would be his inevitable presidency. And yet they maintained a sense, and part of that I think was just sort of 9/11. I have mentioned this many times on the program, but the Newsweek issue, due to come out September 13th, 2001, was, in fact, the cover was about the fissure in the Supreme Court. That it had sort of burst out into the open because there was an annual visit from Russians who would come and meet with the Supreme Court justices to find out how you create a rule of law in society. And that in the course of that, which happened, I think, over the course of the summer, there was a lot of rancor over the Bush v. Gore ruling. And there was, it seemed to me that the legal profession was in shock following the 2000 ruling. People were just like, how could the Supreme Court do this? And they were just sort of coming out of shock by the end of the summer. And then, of course, 9/11 hit, and it all got completely wiped away. I remember this because I was obsessed with the whole thing, and that's what drove me to write and shoot A Bad Situationist over that summer, which also, by 9/11 or on 9/11, became a movie that was a huge mess on that day. But that's another story for another day.